Welcome to We Need to Talk Now, presented by AT&T. I'm Alicia Jay, and I am here with Ashley Nicole Moss that is in full celebration right now. Ashley,
I need the fun
let it all out.
flex bomb. I'm gonna let out yeah, listen. It is Cooper's gonna come in here any second and be like, what are you doing? Yep, here he comes. Listen, I've had a insane past 24 hours as a New York sports fan. The Yankees are headed to the World Series for the first time in 15 years. I know for franchises that have never won a World Series, that seems like 15 years. That's it. For a Yankees fan, that's a very long time. And now the New York Liberty are champions. 28 years, my entire life, I have never seen this franchise win a title. I remember when they were still playing at the Garden. It's a very nostalgic moment. You know, a lot of people are new Liberty fans. They know the Liberty who play in the Barclays Center and in Brooklyn. Us OG Liberty fans remember when they used to be at MSG on 7th Avenue. And even before then, Westchester, and just the whole, like, it's been a long journey to get to this point. It's just very exciting. It's a very, very cool time to be a New York sports fan. I am hoping that this good energy that the Liberty have brought to New York basketball trickles down to my New York Knicks. Basketball gods, if you are listening, I told you, if that happens, Alicia, I will not be back on this podcast because I will be in jail for acting a fool.
So. You know, I already told you that we will bail you out. So no worries on that. No worries on that.
Here for it.
But listen, the Liberty are the WNBA champions. Amazing to watch. 28 years in the making. 28 years in the making. They went from 4 years ago playing in front of 2,000 people to a historic sellout crowd winning the championship. It was everything that a WNBA fan would want to watch. Like, that transcended who you like. You know what I'm saying? In the league. That this season and that game transcended it. But let me tell you this, we're going to get into all of this. We're going to react to this. We're going to talk about everything, including some of the calls, because a lot of people have been talking about that. But first, we need to talk about subscribing. So go ahead and hit that subscription button. We have all the ways to connect with us right here. Literally every single way that you could consume We Need to Talk Now is right here for you. So go ahead, take those notes, do the follows, do the likes. We also want you to comment. We want you to share all of these things because you aren't going to get these episodes if you aren't connected in that way. So listen, we have a QR code that's going to pop up right now. Very easy to connect with us via this way too. So listen, we're getting into this reaction of this championship game. So make sure you're connected because you're going to miss things like this if you're not. So Ashley, listen, we are still celebrating, clearly. Yeah. Still celebrating.
You see Ellie's fit before we get into it, her little puffer jacket set.
Oh, I saw the whole thing. The whole, she came in with the championship outfit. Okay. She was not playing
puffer jacket with the pink bag and
all custom, ready to go. She walked in with confidence, knowing that her team was going to win, and they did. What are your initial thoughts? We know your thoughts about New York.
Yeah.
And being excited that New York won this game, but what are your initial thoughts on the game itself?
Listen, I wish that the MVP could have been given to the entire bench because that's the only reason New York is winning a championship right now. It goes without saying, we all watched it. Stewie and Sabrina did not have a good performance. You know, yes, there are several ways to impact a game, so I don't want to negate the things that they did outside of scoring, but you know, when you talk about your stars and your leaders, I'll say, because, you know, everybody on that team, I feel like, is a star and showcase that tonight. When you talk about your leaders, you want them to show up in the big games. You know, the saying, big time players make big time plays in big time games. And Sabrina was atrocious from the field, from the three. She just did not have it. Those shots were not falling. Stewie wasn't much better. When she missed those 2 free throws, I thought I was going to pass out. I honestly was like, this is crazy that this has happened twice in this series in 2 different games. Again, that bench came in clutch though. They did what you want. And this is why I talk about this all the time. And I talk about this with the NBA too. And I've gotten into disagreements with other people who think that you can win a championship if you just have the 3 biggest names and 3 all-stars and 3 Hall of Famers on your team. That's all you need. Maybe, if you're playing pickup basketball in a park somewhere and it's a one and done situation. But when you talk about winning a series, whether it's a best of 5 or a best of 7, which next year will be for the W, you need a complete team for this very reason, because you're going to have nights where your stars, your leaders are not going to perform well. And that's exactly what happened tonight. And it's because of the depth of the New York Liberty that the Liberty are walking away champions on their home court in front of their home crowd, because of how deep they are, because of how much star power and firepower there is outside of Brianna and Sabrina. So that was my biggest takeaway, because the Liberty, from top down, there were some moments where I was highly concerned. Again, I think whenever you talk about a game of this magnitude, I think on both sides we saw jitters and we saw both teams working through that anxiousness. But there were a lot of question marks from Sabrina and Stewie throughout that entire game that I'm glad didn't trickle down to the rest of the squad. And the bench really held down the fort, because they were needed tremendously tonight.
They definitely did. I believe it was, I mean, listen, Arike Ogunbowale, do we have this, Emma? She said that they need, I don't know if we have it, but she tweeted that they need to, Sabrina and Stewie need to buy that bench some like steak dinners, because they did their thing. But I have to give a specific shout out to Niara Sabali. I mean, when I tell you she changed this game completely, when she came in with that energy, it sparked every single person in there. Even though some people weren't contributing in ways of points and that kind of thing, it got the energy up and people were actually fighting, because before then it was frantic, like you said.
Yeah.
They were literally playing almost like they weren't in the championship for a while. It was when things weren't falling, they weren't fighting to come back from that happening. And so when she came in, like you said, hasn't really played in the whole series. I want to say she got a total of 4 points. I might be wrong on that. You can fact check me, Emma. But she was ready. She was ready to contribute, put it all out on the floor. Even, I don't know if you saw this, but when she had her like a sideline interview with Holly Rowe, right before the sideline interview, she's like, I've never done this before. It was so cute that she did that. But it just shows you that it doesn't matter if you're out there on the court all the time and you're the star player, whatever. You matter, you better be ready. And she was. She definitely was. Kayla Thornton as well. I mean, we could go down the line on the bench, but literally, I would say, I mean, Niara Sabali, you did your thing. Thank God for you. The Liberty should definitely say your name first in this specific game every single time, because they would not be having the championship without you. And that is just point blank, period, facts. I also think for MVP, give a shout out to Jonquel Jones.
The Bahamas is about to be litty.
I mean, literally, as they should be. As they should be. They got it right on the MVP. She held it down for the Liberty this whole entire series. The even fact that they're in the championship game is in large part due to her. She was the X factor. People talk about, what the X factor would be. And she was that all year, really, but especially in the series. So shout out to her for sure. But I'm really happy for the franchise. At the end, the owner talked about how they were playing in front of 2,000 people 4 years ago. 4 years ago, and now you see what's happening.
Yeah.
And also
they were playing for 4,000 people at the Barclays, but they were also years and years ago in Westchester, probably even less than that. So
right.
Yeah, it's just a testament to how much women's sports has grown. And I love what Holly Rose said. Like, this is what it looks like when you invest,
Yes.
in women's sports and you do it the right way. And I have to give credit to the Tsai family. They've done a phenomenal job with the Liberty. It's very unfortunate. Obviously, as a Knicks fan, I would have loved for the Liberty to continue playing in the Garden. Um, you know, things beyond, fan control was the reason why they ended up moving to the Barclays. But the Tsai family runs the Nets aren't the Knicks, but they run a great organization over there in terms of what they provide for players. And you expect that in the NBA because there's so much money there. But for them to give that same quality to the WNBA with the Liberty, I mean, I believe, and Emma, you can fact check me, I believe the Liberty were the first WNBA team to have charter flights, because of the Tsai family putting up the money necessary to
Well,
make that happen.
and
So
they
that
were even fined for it. They were
it was
fined for
illegally,
doing.
but
Well, no, I'm saying, but the fact that they did it and they knew that it had to happen and that was the right thing to do. They
Mhm,
were willing to take that fine to do it. And that kind of example is what everyone needs to have in this league.
mhm,
This year was an enormous year for the WNBA. That's an understatement, right?
mhm,
But you see each franchise really realizing we cannot react anymore. We have to be proactive. We have to do the right thing. We have to invest in our teams. I mean, you can even see that in the coaching. There's a lot of reasons why a lot of these coaches are being let go, and we can talk about that in a different pod. But I think one of the reasons why is because they see that they have to step up and create these winning cultures instead of just buying teams, not doing right by them, just buying them a name, not doing right by them, and just kind of like letting them be. No, it's an investment, number one, but also you should do right by the women in your league, period. And people in different leagues, and I'm sorry, not leagues, but well, actually different leagues too, but the teams are having to step up because of it. And so this is a testament to what happens when, like Holly said in the post game, you do invest in women, and you invest in a phenomenal league that has always been phenomenal. And now that people are just starting to see it, it is exploding, but it's what should have always have happened from the beginning of the league. So it's a beautiful thing to see. And listen, you see what happens when you do it. So step up.
yeah,
Everybody step
for
up.
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So
Well, listen, we want to go ahead, and before we go ahead and talk about the officiating and things like that, let's look on the other side of the game and talk about the Lynx. I mean, obviously they came out more dominant than the Liberty did straight out the gate. Looked a little bit more focused, just looked a little bit. I think both teams had nerves, but I would be willing to say that the Lynx looked a little bit less nervous than the Liberty, and the nerves are normal for a game of that magnitude. It's not anything that I'm putting on either
without a
team as
doubt.
a mistake or anything like that. It happens. It happens even to the most experienced veterans. It's just the energy of the game. But I just thought the Lynx overall, the ball movement was better, the defense was better. Obviously, their shooting was better, their shot selection for me was better, the looks that they were getting were better. More importantly, their stars were hitting their shots early in that game, which was a direct contrast to what was happening on the Liberty side. I think where things took a turn, obviously, like I said, we'll get into the officiating in a minute, but I will say that when the Liberty started to hit their stride a little bit, I want to say in that third quarter, and was able to get themselves out of the deficit that they had kind of put themselves in late into the third quarter, and they were able to really start chipping away at that lead. And eventually it was a tie game. You saw a little bit of a momentum switch. I think the Lynx did a good job at responding, but I think towards the end of that fourth quarter, and then into overtime, they started to unravel at the seams, and you started to see a different type of team than you did in that first half, even in those first three quarters. And Courtney Williams wasn't hitting the shots that she normally hits, especially that mid-range game that she loves to exist in. Obviously, Nafisa was getting, aggravated with her lack of calls that she was getting. She was getting held down low in the paint. She obviously ended up fouling out. So there was just a lot of things that started to unravel towards down the stretch and ultimately took them into overtime that I think kind of sealed the fate for the Lynx, once we got into OT around that 60-second left in the game mark.
I literally couldn't say it better than what you just said, but also I just want to give a shout out because when I think about this team and what they did tonight, one player that really comes to mind for me is Alanna Smith because she literally was this whole series. She has number one been playing injured, but number two has been literally, I mean, I can't tell you how many injuries she had because
Spotted.
I mean, and she played through them all. She was clutch in so many ways. She contributed on both ends of the court in ways that you probably wouldn't even see in stats because
Mhm,
she was playing so hard and leaving it all out on the court.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, it just and it was also too, you saw kind of, I don't want to say the changing of the guard, but New York really wasn't hitting at all. But when there were some clutch shots, you almost saw the wind come out of the sails a little bit. And that's when it started unraveling as well. And it was really
Mhm.
hard because I was like, right now, you know, they're doing great. But once that happened on the other end of the court, it just seemed to shift. Then you have the crowd involvement, you're at home,
Mhm.
everything starts to lock in. And it was really hard to watch, to be honest, because they played such, especially in the first half, a beautiful half, I thought. I mean, there was a little bit of frazzlement. Like you said, they were
Yeah.
frazzled in that first part of the first quarter, but they really played that basketball that they've been playing all year. There were some really beautiful things to watch about it. And I was just like, dang, they are really out. They didn't care where they were playing, home or other. They were just out there playing Lynx basketball, which was one of my keys for them to win. But then you just saw it definitely start to unravel. So that
Yeah.
was really hard to watch. Now, Ashley, we've kind of talked a little bit about the officiating, a light bit of it, but what were your thoughts on the officiating in this game?
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing was, well, before I get to that, I'm somebody who, again, I am on the side of, if you're going to call it on one side, you have to call it on the other. I'm not, I thought that the officiating once again, and I felt this way in game four as well, was a little bit lopsided. It wasn't consistent. So that's something you don't really like to see, just like we've seen in other games this series. And look, we talked about this after game four. Sometimes complaining publicly about the refs shift things a little bit into your favor. It's a mind game. It's been going on since the beginning of time. 25 free throws for New York, 8 free throws for Minnesota. If you look at the numbers from game four, it's probably the opposite, right? Minnesota got to the line a lot more than New York did in that game. So it's been a lot of lopsided officiating. I don't feel like just in this game. I think this entire series, if I'm going to be completely honest, has been poorly officiated, or was poorly officiated, I should
Mhm.
say, past tense now. Um, I think in spite of that, we got a really great series, great basketball overall.
Absolutely.
I think that we got some really great close games despite poor officiating. But I hate seeing the refs get involved in the outcomes of games. I hate seeing the refs try to be the main character of games. And when we talk about this game specifically, I mean, there's a lot of things we can point to, but obviously the biggest thing, I'll tee it up and get your reaction here. When we talk about Stewie, again, Stewie's one of those players where, like, even her bad game is like a stat line that, like,
Yeah.
play like 11 points, 15 rebounds, it's a double double. So, like, it's just insane. But when you think about it, focusing on the officiating, she missed 2 free throws toward the end of the game that would have given New York the win. Um, she had the opportunity with almost 4 seconds left on the clock to redeem herself after a foul to tie the game. She ended up hitting both. Now, that specific foul is kind of what has NBA and WNBA Twitter divided. LeBron was one of the people who commented on it and said, quote, "I'm sorry, but that wasn't a foul. Let the damn players dictate the outcome of a close battle tested game." Isaiah Thomas also accused the refs of making that call in favor of New York, but he's like, I get it, it's New York. A lot of people were split on that specific call. Alicia, I'll let you go first, and then I'll kind of bounce off your ideas. What did you make of that specific play?
Well, it's always hard for me with this because obviously a game isn't truly decided on one thing alone, right?
Mhm.
So I always go back to that with this kind of argument. But I will say the officiating was not good.
Mhm.
They need to look at this and learn from this for sure. The whole series, like you said, the whole series. But I am on the side of what LeBron said.
Mhm.
Um, these players for this entire series have put it out on the floor. They were putting everything they had out there tonight. And to see it come down to a call like that that I don't think was a foul, I think is a detriment to obviously both teams and the game itself. Like it shouldn't even come down to that. Let the players play. Period. So I'm on that side of it. But at the end of the day, that wasn't the only thing alone that got them to that space of even, being in that situation for a foul to make that decision, if that makes
Mhm.
sense. And so it's hard for me because I don't want to say that, New York won because of a call or some calls. I can't
Mhm.
say that because we could argue that in every single game. But do I think that that call was terrible? Yes.
Mhm.
Do I think you should just let the players play in this respect when it's down to a championship and they have literally uh, put everything that they had in this whole series? Yes, let them play. So I would side more with like what LeBron was saying, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, so I kind of like in game 4, I'm forgetting the exact call, but it was called on Sabrina, and I remember having the same complaint when we did the post game after game 4. And Emma, if you maybe you're able to like pull that up so I can get like a more idea of like where it was, but Sabrina was called. I think it was for a foul on drawing a blank on the player, but it was the same kind of thing. And if she wasn't, the game would have went into overtime. And I remember after game 4 saying the same thing, that I hate seeing a game come down to that, like an ending of a game come down to that. And in a sense, I feel the same way, except this is slightly different. And I'll just play devil's advocate here.
Mhm.
From certain angles, it did look like some of Brianna's, whether it was her elbow or her forearm, got hit, right? So is it a egregious foul? Is it a foul at all? Maybe, maybe not. I just think that in that situation, if you already called it, you can't then reverse it, because now at this point, there's not enough to overturn it. There probably wasn't enough there to even call the foul, right? But what you do now you're in a weird situation as a referee, because you called a foul that, and I'll be honest, was a little bit of a ticky tack foul. Like it wasn't anything egregious. I don't even think it was like that much of anything to call it. But when you call it, and now you're watching the replay and you see, okay, there's like a little bit of something here, like there's a little bit of a touch there. But now is it enough to overturn it? Is it like it's a you're now, yes, Sabrina fouled, they called a foul on Sabrina on Bridget Carlton to end game 4. And that was like the same kind of a thing. Like you don't make that call that late in the game because the game was going to go into overtime, right? So in this situation, I feel like it wasn't much there for the refs to even call that to begin with, but they did call it. And now you're in a weird situation because there's not enough to overturn what you are deeming a foul. And if you watch it, there's some such little whatever ticky tack touch or whatnot, but you already called it. So now it's like you kind of just got to lay in it. You know what I mean? So I hear people when they say it's not a foul, it wasn't that. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that. I don't think there was much there. Um, if this was earlier in the game, I probably would have been like, why did you even call that? But I think that late in the game with that much riding on it to potentially bring this game into overtime, there's just not enough to overturn it. You already called it. Now you just got to let the chips fall where they may. And that's what I'm saying with the officiating was really disappointing in this series, because there were things that were called that were just unnecessary to be called. There were things that should have been called that weren't. There were things that were called on one side that weren't on the other. The officiating was bad, which is why I say like you can't have the refs trying to be the main character. Um And I feel like that's what happened. And I feel like ultimately that's why we're even in this position having this conversation, because the refs made a call that was a little bit ticky tack late in the game, but now you have to kind of like stick with it. Those are the cards on the table at this point. So
Well,
it was a weird situation.
a weird situation, but the fact that we're sitting here recounting multiple times when they
Mhm.
decided with like ticky tack fouls or whatever the case is a testament to the officiating just being really bad this entire series. As a matter of fact, Cheryl Reeves said sometimes you get away with stuff when you're physical and aggressive, and they certainly did. It's a shame that officiating had such a hand in a series like this, and it is a shame. And I think we can agree on that.
Mhm.
That it's a shame that that was even something that we're even talking about right now. We should just be talking about this win and not the officiating, period. So, man,
Definitely. I mean, listen, congrats to the New York
yes.
Liberty. We're gonna celebrate them a little bit more in this next segment, because right now it is time for Connecting Changes Everything, presented by AT&T. So this week we are going to honor the trailblazers that helped the Liberty get to this very point. All right. So for New York, if you're unaware, you missed the beginning of the show. This is the first ever trophy. They're one of the 8 original franchises in the WNBA. And we wanted to look at previous players that helped create this now champion winning franchise and think of what this title means to them. Now, first and foremost, Teresa Weatherspoon was in the house. We saw her getting a little emotional, or a lot emotional. I believe she was sitting next to Swin, right?
Yes, she was next
That's
to
what,
Swin.
right? Yeah, they were sitting next to each other, and you saw her getting emotional, and Swin was kind of like hugging her and making sure she was good. So, um, Witherspoon shot in 1999 of game two of the WNBA Finals is actually the greatest shot in Liberty history. I know we keep talking about Sabrina's, but make sure you pull up that shot so you can see exactly what it is that we were talking about, because Witherspoon would then go on to become the WNBA's all-time assist leader with the Liberty, helping the Liberty back to the finals in 2000 and 2002. And during her career with New York, she was a 2-time WNBA DPOY and made the all WNBA second team not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. And others in the Liberty Ring of Honor include Becky Hammon, Vicki Johnson, Kim Hampton, Rebecca Lobo, Crystal Robinson, Sue Wicks, and of course, Swin Cash.
Let's go, Swin. Well, everybody, but Swin is on We Need to Talk, so we got to give
Yes.
a shout out to Swin for sure. What was so it actually made me emotional seeing Teaspoon get emotional and
Mhm.
seeing Swin, seeing the players that were there to see this monumental win
Mhm.
for the Liberty. Because one thing we've been talking about all season is that, we've had a phenomenal year in WNBA basketball. We had a phenomenal rookie class,
Mhm.
just a phenomenal time in women's sports in general. But it is the players like the ones that you just mentioned that planted the seeds, that did all of the hard work, that laid the foundation for a time such as this to happen. And so, literally, we're connecting like the past with what is happening in the present. And it's a
Right.
beautiful thing to see because all of it is making it what it is today. All of it. And so I personally, while I was watching, got emotional. I had to get myself together because I personally remember playing in gyms with literally 20 people in them. And, I was just a small D1, college basketball player. But when I think about where it's at now and the growth that has happened, this series and this win for the Liberty is like the perfect cap onto what has happened in women's basketball and what has happened in women's sports. It was like the perfect ending to the explosion that has happened this season.
A
And it
full
was
circle
beautiful to
moment for
see.
sure. Yeah, I mean, we talk about, I feel like all oh, 1 second. Emma just gave me an update, everybody. This is live. Just so you're aware, Dodgers and Yankees in the World Series. The Mets blew the cash. Tragic. Can't relate. Would have been cool to have the Subway Series in the World Series, but you know what? There's only room for one top dog in New York, and clearly it's the Yankees. So Dodgers, bring it, baby. We ready. Anyway, we'll do a baseball show another day.
I was gonna say, let's pause that a little bit.
Going back, it's cool because I feel like all WNBA season, it's kind of been this not battle, but it's been this conversation of, giving the new kids on the block, specifically Caitlin Clark, all the accolades and all the, admiration for where the W is right now. And although she has been such an instrumental, monumental part of bringing, especially this specific year, um, the league to this point, there's been so much that has happened before her. And I just think that this is kind of that full circle moment of showing the new kids on the block. And Sabrina and Stewie, they're not new, but the newer defenders of this franchise, faces of this franchise, and seeing the women who even made this franchise a possibility to be where it is right now all share the court, all share that arena, and know that without them, this moment wouldn't have even been possible. And I just think it was very poetic in sense of what this season has kind of been. And that is not only celebrating the new and celebrating where the league is now, but realizing and looking back and knowing that like it's not possible without all of these people over here. And I just think that's very cool how it came full circle.
Yeah, and people talk a lot about investment in dollars into women's basketball, women's sports, the WNBA, and that is so important. But the players that were sitting there watching the championship tonight, they invested like literally with their blood, sweat, and tears to get to that moment. And so I just, to see the work that they put in, the history that they made to get to that point, and then to sit there and watch a part of history that they had a part of making was just an absolutely beautiful moment.
Yeah,
Absolutely beautiful.
love that. Congrats to everybody, man.
Congrats to
Everybody
everyone.
involved. Love that.
A beautiful close to this season. And as the WNBA season comes to a close, Ashley, listen, there's so many things. We'll go down with the notes. 25-year high in viewership, final series averaging over 18K per game, two of the 7 largest attendance marks in WNBA finals history
Mhm.
happened in this series, broke a 21-year viewership record, playoffs ratings up 142% over the last season. I mean, that was literally just surrounding this series and everything. But given all of these numbers and what has
Yeah.
happened, what is like one word that you would use to describe this season and why?
Well, first and foremost, I'm looking at the just the overall numbers and things like that. I also want to shout out our home, CBS, because I feel like they were so instrumental in a lot of these just high viewership games. Obviously, we had so many WNBA games on CBS this season, and a lot of those were record breaking in terms of viewership and just social engagement and everything that you could want for a game or games of the type of magnitude that we were getting all season long. So shout out to CBS for being one of the leaders in kind of pushing that forward and making sure that those games were seen on a larger scale. And obviously the numbers don't lie. Everybody was watching, everybody was tuned in. And I hope that this is now kind of a standard for other people
It
when
must
talking
be.
about the W, because we've seen numbers don't lie. You guys wanted numbers. Well, you got numbers. So
Right. There's no excuse anymore. You can't say
yeah.
that this was the excuse. The numbers are there. I mean, everything is there. We just read off like a tenth of what we could have
Mhm.
read for this season.
If I had to think of a word to describe the WNBA season this year, I would say polarizing, but in the best way possible. I think that the W season this year um was polarizing in the sense of the conversations that were being had. I think, good, bad, in the middle. There were conversations about gender and race and you know, privilege and things that I think are more on the serious side. And I think that those conversations are necessary to have in order to understand the intricacies of the WNBA because we've talked about this so much. It's the most diverse league I feel like there is in professional sports. I say polarizing because of the personalities within this league. There's so many different types of personalities and styles, and there's inner beefs in the best possible way. There's beefs among teams and fan bases and mascots. And I mean, the list goes on and on. I think polarizing in the sense of how the men and women who have been reporting on the W for such a long time have been very protective of the league being reported on correctly and have been crusaders in making sure that the narratives out there are fair and they're factual. I think polarizing in the sense of the different storylines that have gone viral, some for the better, some for the worse. And just overall, I think polarizing because it's just introduced and brought so many new fans
Mhm.
to the W. And I think ultimately, yes, there's things that can be worked on, but I think that this is what W fans who really have been here since day one have been waiting and praying for was for these games to get those million plus eyes and to be talked about on social and to be talked about on daytime television and sports radio, to be showcased in sports bars and to be able to bet on them in sports books. And it's now at that place and time. And now it's just about how you continue to build on that. So I would say polarizing is my word.
Polarizing is a great word. There's actually so many words we could use for this season. And this is one word we've definitely said many times, but I think it just completely rings true when you think about what has happened, and that's monumental.
Mm.
It has been a monumental season, in seeing what still needs to change, right? Like it was monumental in that it was just right there. Like you can't deny it anymore, right? But then it was also monumental in the fact that there was so much growth. The popularity of the league definitely was ignited in ways that it hasn't been before. All the records that we talked about, and just seeing the W flourish in the ways that it always should have been. It always should have been, has been an amazing thing to watch and actually be a part of. This show has been monumental for both of us in different ways, in covering the W, covering women's sports, but the monumental just history that has occurred this year, we haven't really seen anything like it in any league, really. This growth was just outstanding. And so I would say monumental because it will go down in history books as just being a season that changed the W forever. And it's just going to keep getting better.
Absolutely. And obviously, first of all, okay, time out, time out. See, I was on a good note, and then I read this note that Emma put in our rundown here. What the heck, Emma? Was this shade towards? I'm just gonna read this so people people can hear what I'm reading. All right, so it says New York in the WNBA. I'm sorry, yeah, the WNBA slash NBA Finals since the Knicks won in 1973. Yes, we know. That was the last time the Knicks won the NBA Finals, everyone. Ha 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 ha. 1973. I got it. We get it. Whatever. Yeah, so last time the Knicks were in the NBA Finals was 1999. I was 6 years old and we lost 4-1. And ever since then, it's been the Liberty, the Liberty, the Liberty, the Liberty, the Liberty. Before that, it was the Liberty in 97. It was the Knicks in 94, where we lost 4-3. And before that, it was the Knicks in the NBA Finals in 1973. So, yeah,
Ashley, focus on the happy part.
I know I'm gonna start crying.
Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Focus. Keep your tears in. Focus on the happy part.
1973. I wasn't
The
even
Liberty won tonight, Ashley. The Liberty won.
In 1973.
Be excited. Be
I know.
excited.
I'm excited.
Look away. Look away from the notes.
Okay. I'm looking away. I'm looking 1973. Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
Listen,
it's okay. You know what? The Yankees are going to win the World Series. The Liberty just won the chip. It's a domino effect. You know what I mean? The Knicks are next. Just goes.
Yes. Abby, do you see what Abby said?
I appreciate
Focus on the
Abby.
positive, Ashley. It's
Focus
okay.
on the positive.
It's okay. Deep breaths. Deep breaths.
Got it.
Listen, while Ashley recovers from that and starts to celebrate again the Liberty win, we're not done. We're going to be with you every single week here on We Need to Talk Now, but we do want to thank each and every one of you for your support in this W season. Like, we love all your comments. We love that you share our stuff. We love all of that. Like, we really appreciate all of you in this room right now, because I know there are many of you. We're seeing your comments and we're loving it. And, this is the first year. Rodney don't look. Don't.
That's good in the finals.
Okay. I didn't even want to look for you, Ashley. I was a little nervous about I just saw Knicks and I was like, I'm here for it.
I'm good. It's a domino effect, Alicia. It's happening.
Yes. Thank you, Rodney. But we just want to thank you so much. This is the first season of We Need to Talk Now, and it has been amazing. We're looking forward to having shows every single week right here with you, celebrating women's sports, and We Need to Talk Now. And we just really appreciate each and every one of you rocking with us every single show.
For sure. It's been a great season. It's been a long but short season. I felt like it kind of flew by.
The W season. Yeah. There was a lot that went on. So in that respect, it was a lot, right? It was a lot to cover. And I'm sure the players had a lot going on this year that they had to work through, as well as all of the amazing things that were happening. But yeah, it is kind of crazy that it's already kind of like coming to an end, but what an end it was, especially for you, Ashley.
Well, listen, I know. But listen, we also, although the W season is coming to an end or has come to an end, remember, there's Athletes Unlimited. There's a new Unrivaled League. So there's going to be a lot more women's basketball to talk about.
College basketball
starting, and that's going to be an amazing season. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to speak to so many of those young women. It's going to be an incredible, incredible season. So yes, the W has come and gone for this year, but there's so much more to tap in with right here on We Need to Talk. So as usual, make sure you're locked in on all of our social channels and our individual channels as well, so you can follow Alicia as she travels around and hear her tall girl stories about being in the plane. I saw yours today on the story. It was a lot. You said a lot was going on. Make sure you have those notifications turned all the way up when it comes to YouTube, so you don't miss any of our video on demands, if you will, our shorts, all that good stuff. And as usual, there's going to be a QR code at the end of the show. Scan that and we will pop up on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. We got you covered. So make sure you guys are keeping it locked, because we're not going anywhere. Shout out to the champs, though. Go Liberty.
Yes.
Go Liberty.
Congrats to New York for sure.
And Ellie.
Come on, Ellie. Oh, I can't wait to see her celebrations. It's about to be lit.
She's going to wow out at the parade.
Already. And I cannot wait to see it.
I hope she does like a Ellie with her trunk. That'd be kind of lit.
Well, did you see her piercing on her trunk today?
Yeah, I did.
But
I want to see her like shotgun a beer with her trunk. You know what I mean? Like crush the can, like Travis Kelce style, and just like I want to see Ellie get lit at the parade.
Oh, she definitely. You already know she's celebrating right now, and she will continue to be lit until that parade. She's actually just a lit person in general. Period. Ellie is lit. in general. So.
Rodney.
Oh,
Oh,
thank
thanks,
you, Rodney.
Rodney.
Thank you, Rodney. We love
All
you
right,
back.
everyone. Get some sleep. It's been a long season, short season. It's been a crazy series.
Yeah.
I know I'm exhausted. I got indigestion. I gotta take a
Listen,
tone.
you see my hair.
We'll be back. Bye, guys.
See you next week, y'all.